in here. All right, getting close here. And are you guys, whoops, are you guys okay? I'm gonna.
You're on mute, Cindy.
I know, I was just talking to the staff. Okay, here we go. Okay, it looks like we're live. Welcome to the 1455th regular board meeting. I've called this meeting to order, and I would like everyone to remind everyone to mute your phones and refrain from typing comments in Teams. This meeting has been called to order. In closed session, the board gave direction to legal counsel. So now we will go through our roll call. And our first one is Student Representative Carranza.
Present.
All right. Thank you, Carson. Trustee Brown.
I'm present.
Okay. Trustee Irvin will not be joining us tonight. He had a family emergency. Trustee Lopez.
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Maestas.
Present.
All right. I'm working on it. Trustee Mejia.
Present.
All right. Vice President West.
Here.
And President Marks, that's myself, and I am here. So thank you all for joining us. And now we will move on to our translator services. So I'd like to refer anybody who needs translator services to Miss Paula Valbuena, who is on this virtual conference. Miss Valbuena, will you please go ahead?
Thank you, President Marks. Buenas noches. Habla Paula Valbuena. Si necesita servicios de interpretación al español, por favor llame al 1-805-324-7680 e ingrese el código de acceso 199-156-816 más la tecla numeral. Este es un número totalmente gratis. Nuevamente, llame al número de teléfono 1-805-324-7680 e ingresa el código de acceso 199-156-816 más la tecla numeral. También puede acceder a estas instrucciones en nuestro sitio web en mcs4kids.com dirigiéndose a la parte inferior de la pantalla en Quick Links y haciendo clic en Board Agendas para ir a la agenda de esta noche. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valbuena. And now we are going to have our moment of silence. And so for this time, I would really like it if we would remember those who have lost a loved one recently. And I especially want us to remember Gerald Jarvis and his family. We lost him this week. He was a teacher and a counselor at Elliott Education Center. So we'll have our moment of silence beginning now. Thank you all. And now we will do our Pledge of Allegiance. And so we will welcome our student from Tuolumne Elementary School to lead us in the flag salute tonight. Her name is Melanie Sorato Montanez. Third grader Melanie is an exceptional student in school. She brings a positive can-do attitude every day. Melanie has a special talent for art and enjoys school projects and drawing at home. She is a peace builder and is a great friend to her peers. After she graduates, Melanie would like a career being an artist. And now the IT staff will begin our video and we'll stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melanie from Tuolumne Elementary School, and I'm going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bye.
That was so great.
That was great.
That was so sweet. So hard to do it in your own house, not in this room. So I thank those students and staff for making that available for us. That was sweet. Now, I have a few announcements. So this open session meeting of the Board of Trustees is being live streamed at the direction of the board. The live stream is available on the district's website, and the recordings will be available for viewing the day after the board meeting. Modesto City School board meetings are closed to the public to follow the new state guidelines on social distancing until further notice. This action was taken in response to the governor's executive order N2520 and Resolution 19/20-17, delegating authority to take necessary action to protect students and staff from the spread of coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, adopted by Modesto City Schools on March 18, 2020. Regarding public comment, Modesto City Schools has provided an opportunity for the public to comment. It is outlined on the agenda. The public has been given an opportunity to call in and leave a voicemail or send us a comment via email address. This practice will continue throughout the time we are conducting virtual meetings. For members of the public that are interested in commenting in the future, we welcome your comments. And now we will move on to A5, the superintendent, Superintendent Noguchi's welcoming and announcements that she has for us.
Thank you, President Marks. Good evening, everyone who's tuned in tonight. First, I want to welcome our two new board members. We welcome you to our team, Trustee Mejia and Trustee Maestas. We look forward to working with each of you individually and also collectively as a governance team. I know January 11th we have a workshop around teaming and governance training, so we look forward to spearheading that work at the beginning of the year. As we transition to the winter break, I want to take a few minutes just to show and speak about some appreciation that I have for the Modesto City Schools staff. I recognize this year has been a really difficult year, and we've been working under very difficult conditions. I have to say that I'm really proud of all the work that our teachers are doing, our students, our parents, our communities. Teachers and staff are really going above and beyond, and I want to be able to showcase that tonight. I want to share an example of really going above and beyond. As you know, COVID doesn't take the weekend off. We leave on Friday and we turn off our computers, but you know what? COVID is still very much alive. As a result, our site administration and our district office staff throughout the weekend have to monitor the positive COVID cases, send letters out to staff, do contact tracing. So the work continues just Friday through Friday and Saturday and Sunday. I want to share with you a text that I received this past weekend, which illustrates really the high level of commitment that district office staff has along with our site administration. So I'm going to read this. It says, "Happy Sunday," and this was Sunday at, it looks like about 4 o'clock. "Happy Sunday. I just want you to know something. I've never felt more supported in my years as a site leader here in Modesto. Shackelford is down a lot of employees and 15 scholars due to COVID. Today alone, I have had Roger Orth, Mark Herbst, Brian Wilson, and Ryan Hahn all kindly and compassionately reach out to me to ensure that I had what I needed to support a safe and responsible opening tomorrow. I just wanted to share that. Thank you for aligning the bus." Remember, we talked about getting people in the right seats on the bus last year. Additionally, Steve Herbst and also Lori Hewland. So thank you. So I share that with you because really the commitment, we've really spoken and trained our staff at the district office to be support to schools. So really appreciate that as an example of really the support that our schools have from our district office staff. We have a lot of hard days ahead of us, but I know that we've got the right team assembled. I know that teachers are working hard to do their best to engage kids I know that we have our support staff who are going the extra mile, our CSEA members. If we didn't have the commitment and the work from our CSEA, we wouldn't have all the hubs that we do have currently at our school sites. So again, a special thank you to CSEA and their commitment and their work. So before I finish, I do want to say thank you to all the staff and the students who shared many, many comments on social media on behalf of Mr. Jarvis. As President Marks mentioned, last Thursday, Modesto City Schools was saddened to hear about the passing of a longtime educator, Mr. Gerald, or Jerry Jarvis. I didn't know Jerry, but it is clear that he made a huge impact on hundreds, if not thousands of students, literally 30,000 hits on comments alone on social media. Reading all of his posts this weekend was really inspiring as I sat and I read them. It was clear that teachers and staff really have a huge impact on not only individual students that spoke on behalf, but also our community at large. So thank you to him, and our prayers go out to his family. With that, I want to thank staff, and again, enjoy your break. It's well deserved. Be safe, and I look forward to working with you in January. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to President Marks. Thank you. You're on mute.
Hold on, I pulled one sheet too many here. Wait a second. So we're on A. Gotta find where I am. I apologize. There we go. So now we are moving on to A6, Board of Education members' reports. So we will start with Trustee Lopez. Do you have a report?
I don't have a report. I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays. Reminder that I've been sadly doing month in and month out. Please, as much as possible, stay home, stay safe, enjoy your family. Hold off the big gifts until next year. If we're all together, we'll have a great time. But let's be responsible. Let's be safe, and let's take care of each other.
All right, thank you. So I see Trustee West and then Trustee Brown have comments for reports.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I think most of us were able to attend the CSBA conference virtually this year, and they had some wonderful breakout workshops and some great keynote speakers. I particularly enjoyed one of the sessions on equitable grading. I watched it twice because I thought it was so interesting. I also attended the budget meeting on December 8th. The audit exit meeting was supposed to be last Wednesday, but it's been postponed, so it'll be this Wednesday instead. And I also wish everyone a safe, happy, and joyous holiday season.
Thank you, Trustee West. Trustee Brown?
Yes, the CSBA conference was one like none other. I think I've attended 20 over the years, and this particular conference had some elements that were, I thought, better than any other that I've attended. And so great to see how we can make the best of tough times. So I don't have any other meetings to report, but I do want to thank the district for reaching out and inviting all of us to participate in the toy drive for children who are homeless and foster children. And I appreciate the opportunity to participate in that event and thank the district for making sure to reach out to those students. And once again, thank you to all and happy holidays.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. Trustee Maestas?
Thank you. I wanted to take a moment just to say hi and introduce myself a little bit too here. I just want to say I'm really excited to be part of this team, and I too went to the CSBA conference last week. Also went to equitable grading, which I thought was wonderful. fascinating. And I actually read the book of the guy that was doing the session, and that was totally awesome to see him on screen. I had some toys to deliver in the toy drive, and I totally forgot to do that today while I was down there. So Trustee Brown, thank you for reminding me to do that. Lastly, I just want to say that I'm really excited to get to work here and be part of this wonderful team, and to be part of the Modesto City Schools and to do all that I can on this board. So thank you very much. And just like everyone else said, have a very happy and safe holiday season.
Thank you, Mr. Trustee Maestas. And I meant to welcome our 2 new board members. I welcomed you last week to the meeting, though it was all one in this room, one on virtually, but tonight to welcome you again in this new setting as our new trustees, because you were sworn in the day after our meeting, so that was awesome. I got to see a little bit of that swearing in, so I had another meeting with the SATFA board that night, but I'm so glad to have you here and joining our team. We look forward to working with you and getting to know you further. So I'm grateful for the 2 of you for stepping up and putting your names in and getting selected to be on this board with us. So we're so happy to have you. Are there any other board members? I just had a couple of comments. I appreciate, go ahead, Trustee Mejia.
I just want to say that it's been great. Thank you to all the board members. Thank you, Dr. Noguchi, for all the training, for all the availability. Your staff has been incredibly awesome on top of things. So I just want to say thank you. And I haven't felt this comfortable into this meeting. I feel really super comfortable because of all the professionalism and staff from every aspect of your office. So it's been incredible. So thank you. And I'm happy to be here. And I'm looking forward to serving our community alongside each of you and all the staff we can't see them on the screen, but I know are here and present with us.
Yes, they're doing great. We thank them too. Without them, it would be very difficult to do this. So we so appreciate that, and especially the tech people. It's been a new tech year, so we've gone through a lot. I wanted to say that I also attended, as all of us did, the CSBA conference, and I enjoyed it. I also went to, besides the grading one, I can't remember what it was titled, but I did Leading Through Change, and it was really interesting. It was kind of a little bit about taking self-care. We'll call it self-care, just because as we lead through certain aspects of COVID and changes, that it's helpful to just take a moment to get yourself back into a place of settledness. And so I thought that was a really helpful reminder that we all need that, and that we, though we know our students are facing extreme challenges, so are we as adults. And so just to remember that it's been a rough year. And then attended the Budget Advisory Committee with Trustee West, and then Equity and Racial Justice with Trustee Irvin. And this week, when we had that meeting, we also came up with our vision statement. And so a lot of work went into that. We started it last month, and then we continued it on to this one. And it sounds like it's going to be a really good statement. So we look forward to the time when it's able to move forward to that, and we'll set some things up with it. But it's been a good couple of weeks. It's only been 2 weeks since we met last, so it's nice to have us all together again. And now I will move on to A7 recognitions, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Noonan.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, President Marks. And if I could get the assistance of the IT team to get the recognitions PowerPoint ready to go, that would be great. While they're doing that, I will go ahead and transition, and welcome to our new board members. My name is Kristen Noonan. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the district, and I have the honor of doing our recognitions every board meeting, and sharing some happy pictures. You'll be able to see them in just a second. And if the IT team, if you're having an issue with it, I can pull it up on my own computer. So could somebody let me know, because I don't see it up yet.
They just let me know they'd like you to share it from your own computer.
Okay, good.
All right.
I'm glad that I have it. So give me just one second. So I can get that shared.
Okay.
All right. And also, while my PowerPoint is starting up, I wanted to offer just a couple of points of clarification as well. For the longtime educator who passed away, his name is actually Mr. Gerard Jarvis. He did go by Jerry, but I just wanted to clarify just in case his family is watching. And the other point of clarification, in the beautiful text message that Dr. Noguchi read, there were some numbers quoted for Shackelford, and I just want to clarify, those are not COVID positives. Those are how many, some examples of how many people are quarantined, but they are not positive cases. So I just wanted to be clear on that, because that will not match the public data that we have out on our COVID dashboard. So I just wanted to offer that point of clarification. All right.
Thank you for clarifying that, Krista.
And
of
thank you
course.
for clarifying my misstep on his name. I read it as Gerald. My father's name was Gerald, and he went by Jerry. So that just clicked in my head, and I apologize to the family for Gerard. So
yes, so good. Okay. Hopefully you can see that, correct?
Yes.
Good to go? Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. So thank you for being patient with me in that transition. So first up tonight, we're celebrating a student, and actually I just want to clarify for the new board members, we always have 3 sets of recognitions for every board meeting. The character education, then which always recognizes a student. Then we have our MCS heroes, which recognize MCS staff members. And then we usually have a special recognition as well. So I'll talk you through it and share the personal stories of the people who did the nominating as well as who they are nominating. So in this case, first up, we're going to celebrate a student with outstanding character through our Character Education Recognition Program. Tonight, we are celebrating Rose Avenue second grader Haneen Karzan for the character trait Perseverance. Teacher Miriam Caro nominated Haneen and shared, the 2020-2021 school year started with distance learning for all MCS students. Haneen was concerned that she would struggle with distance learning, and her parents worried that they would not be able to help her. Together, they became very knowledgeable in all of the learning platforms. Haneen has completed every assignment with confidence and has made incredible growth in her reading fluency and math. She has perfect attendance and takes pride in her education. I am very proud of her effort and the support her family provides. She is extremely deserving of this award. So congratulations, Haneen. I'll do my clap since we can't be there in person. Next up, we have our MCS Hero Award. Excuse me. Tonight, we are recognizing Student Assistant Specialist Barry Jackson with Beyer High School. Nominated by Assistant Principal Nadine Gallus, who shared, Beyer High School has been extremely fortunate to have Barry Jackson as their Student Assistant Specialist for the last 7 years. He has coached cross country for the last 5 years and serves as the Black Student Union Advisor for the last 5 years as well. Barry coordinates with the Modesto Police Department to host the Black Student Union versus Modesto Police Officers basketball game, which is an annual tradition that he started in 2017. He posts weekly physical and mental fitness challenges on all of Beyer High School's social media platforms, and he developed a 35-minute presentation on stress management through mindfulness. Barry continues to meet with students and parents, socially distanced and following all safety protocols. He volunteers at Student Roundup in order to reconnect with students and meet any incoming freshmen. Barry continues to look for ways to stay connected with helping students during this unprecedented time, and it is our honor to nominate him for this award. So congratulations, Barry. Nicely done. All right. Thank you, President Marks. All right. Finally, we're going to celebrate. This is actually a special recognition, and I do want to offer my apologies to Sonoma Elementary. We actually had Sonoma on our recognition agenda way back in March when COVID first emerged in our area, and unfortunately we had to table it. So it's my pleasure to bring it back this evening, and I appreciate the leeway to be able to do that. So we are celebrating all of the staff at Sonoma Elementary School. The following slides will highlight all the names of the current staff at Sonoma as well as the retirees. And the reason why we're doing that is because this is actually the recognition for the 2020 California Distinguished School Award by the California Department of Education. So as you can see, it takes a village. I'm obviously not going to be able to read every single person's name, but I just want to show you some of these pictures are actually pre-COVID as well. So, but it really does show the teamwork that Sonoma has. This Distinguished Schools program recognizes outstanding education programs and practices, and schools are awarded for closing the achievement gap and for achieving exceptional student performance. So congratulations to the entire Sonoma staff, and it's obviously evident in your students with how happy they are and the exceptional performance that they're bringing forth. And I do want to recognize Katrina. She's wonderful. She's their music teacher, and she always does such a great job with sharing the students' talents with us. So that concludes tonight's recognitions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. All right, thank you so much.
Yes, that was awesome. It was great to see them. I'm glad that we can recognize them, even though we weren't able to do it back in March. And so I know that's a very great, prestigious award to be Distinguished School. So that's a wonderful.
It is. And I should add as well, we actually have a plaque that will be installed at Sonoma Elementary, so they'll have it up in perpetuity at the site as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. I know that will be
You're welcome.
Very appreciated by the school staff there and the students and all the parents that get to see it on a regular basis. So thank you so much. Thank you for all of those. And now we're going to go to our board reorganization. And so as we go to that, as you know, this is my last evening as president of the board. And so I just wanted to say a few words and just say that I have appreciated all of you that I've been able to work with, and looking forward to working with the two new trustees, but working with John Walker and Amy this last year, Amy Newman. And it started out really well back in December. And I don't know if all of you remember, but we had planned, Mr. Walker had us go through those policy revising, hundreds of policies that we went through. So the very first meeting after our board meeting, Charlene got to chair our workshop on an all-day Saturday meeting that we did, and I don't know if you remember that, but because I was on vacation that week, and so you did that meeting, and then we had two more coming, and we did two more all-day meetings on those policies, but we completed them all. And I know Mr. Walker is very proud of that accomplishment, as well as I am, just to get everything updated. And then, boom, everything started to change in February, and then in March, everything was shut down. And so that was really difficult. But I did attend in February. We had a wonderful Black History Month celebration at the DoubleTree, and many staff members were there, and all of our schools, our high schools were represented, and I think a couple of junior highs. So that was really awesome. We had a few hundred students that came, and we spent a couple of hours together, and the Dr. Parker Committee, which is the Parents Leading Change, was a big part of that and helped plan that event as well with our staff. So I just appreciated being able to work with Sarah, because Dr. Deguchi, when we got into this was a wild ride. We had no idea what we were headed into, and daily things changed, even hourly things changed. And so I got to know her really well and appreciated all the time that I got to visit with her on the phone as we went through just the challenges that were coming and trying to figure out what could we do next, and how could we do things in a way that would help meet all the needs of our students and the teachers and families that we were working with. So I appreciated her wisdom, calmness, and all that she did. She always had I've been reading this, I've been listening to this, here's what I think is going to happen, here's what I think we should do. And she was right on target on so many things. And the actual fact that she last year had planned to redo all of our technology and start a whole real focus on our technology put us ahead of the game this year when all this hit, because we already were revising things and we were able to see that we were going to need Wi-Fi. We needed to buy Chromebooks, so we got on the list right away, used our money quickly to get Chromebooks before they were all gone, got our K-3 up and running with those, distributed thousands of meals this year. And those were on, the internet. It was kind of great to see all the little pictures of people going out to pick up their meals. And then with the setup, she set up training for our staff. And then we also went through some training to try to figure out, how do we do these virtual meetings? We've never done these before. What's parliamentary procedure for this? How do we vote, and how do we take care of business on the internet? And so we learned how to do that. We learned how to go in and out of these Zoom things and click on different ones, as we did tonight, which was a learning process for all of us. We did some practice runs first to see how to do it, because it was a little complicated and different than what some of us were used to. So I appreciate everybody's patience through that process, because it was challenging. So I just want to thank Dr. Noguchi, and then also Antoinette. I know she's not here tonight, but I just appreciate her. She keeps us all knowing what we need to do. She sends us texts and emails and just keeps me in the loop, so I know what's going on. And if I miss something, she's texting me like, did you realize this is, what you need for this and what do you need for that? And so she's so great. I just appreciate her, and I miss her. And I know she'll be back shortly, but we're appreciative of her and Monica for stepping in that spot and helping us out and getting me my binder and all that information for me. But as we look to the future, I'm really excited for all that we've accomplished this year, including the Budget Advisory Committee, which we were going to end, and we continued it on because we knew the budget was going to be we were going to have some challenges. And then the Equity Racial Justice Task Force has made some great relationships with the community, and I appreciate that we started that this year, and we're crossing cultural lines and we're moving into new areas. And I know that this next year is going to hold some great advances with our staff, students, and the community. So I just want to thank you all for a great and exciting year of change. I'm going to call it the year of change, and I was blessed to be part of it. And 2020 is definitely an unforgettable year. So thank you. And now I believe I am supposed to.
It's me.
Yes.
You have a virtual plaque, and it's not really virtual, it's here. I'm going to see if maybe I tried this earlier and I was able to get most of it.
There it is.
Cool.
There it is. And you're going to be getting this. Wow, you took me back through memory lane, because it seems like February was so long ago. I want to say, Trustee President Marks, that I wish I could present this plaque in person. I've appreciated your leadership and your example this past year, and what a year we have had. I think anyone that has 2020 on it in a leadership position should be really proud that you've been able to get through something so daunting and come out fairly unscathed from that. I appreciated your calmness when you were in the face of some pretty desperate times. I always respected you. I valued your passion for helping others. And I also appreciated your many years of experience and your positive focus on all of our students and all of our community members. Thank you so much for your selfless service to Modesto City Schools, and we will be delivering your plaque tomorrow.
Thank you, Vice President West. Trustee Brown.
Well, President Marks, Vice President West took us down, or said you took us down memory lane, but I want to step back further on memory lane to when I was first elected as a board member in the Silva District. You and I became friends at that time, and we would meet up at the CSBA conferences, and you would always compare the two districts, and she was always so jealous that our board would be there in full force together, and really excited to be at CSBA. And she was always complaining to me. She says, I can't get my board to come to these. And So it was always your board and my board. And then when I came on to the Modesto City Board, it was fun to say that we were a board together, and we saw things change. We saw that the board started attending conferences together, and we really pulled together as a board, and it's been fun to be working together with you in this unified effort to make sure that we as a governance team are working together to support our entire district, our students with the primary focus, our staff, and the educators, the teachers, the classified employees, administration, and cabinet, everyone together. And I just am so grateful for the leadership that we have. Grateful that you've put history to work for us and allowed the district to benefit from all your years of service, both at the state level and here in the district. So appreciate you being in the position you've been in this year and all that you've done to keep us moving forward during pandemic times. So thanks, Cindy, and look forward to continuing working with you as a fellow board member.
Thank you, Chad. And just to clarify, this was the old boards that we had. The new one has been a great team. So you know, I was a bit jealous of the Sylvan board at that time because they had such a good working relationship, but I have nothing to be jealous of anymore because we have the best board. So thank you, Chad, for reminding me about that.
Destination District.
Yep, Destination District. Trustee Lopez.
Yeah, well, President Marks, I just want to say thank you for your leadership. I know that the last three board presidents have had their own presidential issue to deal with, right? Whether it was finding a new superintendent, going through a daunting task of updating our board policies, but I think you took the baton on this one with helping us guide through COVID, which is not an easy task to do. So I appreciate what was mentioned: your calmness, your leadership, and your ability to push us through these times. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Lopez. I appreciate that. Dr. Noguchi.
It looks like I'll round it out. I'm not going to repeat everything that folks have said, with the exception of just a few things. Your leadership, obviously, and your deep bench of experience that you brought to the table this year. This year was a tough year, and we're in the middle of it, right? And we still have some challenging times ahead, but through all of that, and in some cases where it really felt like things were borderline out of control, closed school, open school, it was very tenuous there in March. I can say what I appreciate most is your responsiveness. Do you have a minute? You always have your phone, and that was very helpful. I didn't have to wait an hour or two. You're always very responsive. And also your support. I don't think that there was a time that you didn't support a decision I would make. Doesn't mean that she agreed with all of them. She would just ask questions. So rather than say, Dr. Noguchi, I don't think, it was more of, well, have you considered this, or have you considered that, and have you looked at it through this angle, or have you looked at it through that angle? So rather than it be any sort of judgment, I felt free to just give her a call and say, this is what I'm thinking, and this is, this is who I've talked to, because she was always very concerned with making sure that the whole board is aware of the decisions, because some of these decisions were being made very quickly, especially when it came to closing schools. So again, I appreciate your friendship, your responsiveness, and your wisdom, and you're not going anywhere. So like I said to Ms. Newman, Trustee Newman, a couple of weeks ago, I know where you're at, and I know your expertise, and I certainly will continue to ask you for that support. So with that, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind comments. You were all so kind to me. So thank you. It's been a great year. It's been an exciting year for all of us in different ways. So thank you for your support. And now we're going to go on to the selection of president of the board. So we're going to ask for a motion. So do I have a motion for the president of the board? I will make the motion then. I will make a motion to, for Trustee West to be president. Do I have a second? Trustee Lopez. So I have a second from Trustee Lopez. So is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it's adopted. So we have selected Trustee Vice President West to be our next president. So bravo. Looking forward to your leadership this year. It's been great to work with you this past year too. So I know you're going to do a great job, and I'm looking forward to it.
And I know I have you. If I have any questions, I know who to turn to. Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any questions. And now for a selection of Vice President of the Board. Do we have a nomination for Vice President? Trustee Brown?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Trustee Lopez.
Okay, so Trustee Brown has nominated Trustee Lopez. Do we have a second? Second by Trustee Mejia. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none? Okay, congratulations to both of you, Trustee West and Trustee Lopez, for a coming year. All right, now we are not going to be seated, because usually we would move seats for who's going to sit in the chair at the board meeting, but since that's not going to happen tonight, we will move on to, we're going to go through this. Trustee Walker did this last time, and he stayed as president through the selection process of the next items on the agenda, just because it's kind of awkward sometimes to try to go through that and switch places and everything. So we'll continue on with this. So we're going to go to item A8.4, selection of board representative to County Committee on School Organization. This meeting usually meets once a year. I do not recall who it is or was this past year. It's you, Chad?
Yes.
Okay. So, and Chad would be a good one on that, just because they meet with the other representatives from other school districts. So, but I wanted to see if anybody else would like to do that. Seeing none, do we have a motion? Chad, are you continuing on with it? Pardon?
I'm happy to continue if that's
okay.
the word.
So, do we have a motion for Trustee? We have a motion by Trustee Maestros, and so we have a motion. We have a second. Sorry, I said your name wrong again. I want to put an extra R in there. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to really work on that. Okay, so do we have a second? Trustee Mejia. Okay, so we have a second by Trustee Mejia. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Sorry, I should have said that with the other ones. Moving on to item A8.5. Selection of board representative and alternate to Salida Area Public Facilities Financing Board of Directors. I believe there's 3 meetings a year for this. I thought there was only 2, but I think there's 3. So they meet in Salida at the actual board meeting in Salida. So we met just like a week and a half ago. So this was, I believe John Walker was on this. Before that, I was on it. So is there anyone who would like to be on that Salida Area Public Facilities Financing Agency?
I could do that one.
Okay, so Trustee West, and I would like to be the, alternate, since that's my area. So if that's all right with the board, I don't know if anybody else wants to do that, but it's good. Okay, so do we have a motion then? Do we have a motion? Motion by Trustee Mejia, and then a second by Trustee Lopez for Trustee West, and then Trustee Marks to be the alternate. So all those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Raise our hand. Okay. I'm seeing none, seeing no opposition. It passes unanimously. Selection of board representatives and 2 alternates to the Schools Infrastructure Financing Agency, CIFA board. This is the one that meets, they met virtually, and they used to meet in the Sylvan district. So we talked about this at the last board meeting a bit. So is there anyone who would like to serve on the CIFA board?
I'll do.
Maestas? Okay, yes. And Trustee Lopez, you'd like to? All right. So we have trustee Maestas and trustee Lopez said yes to serve, and then we need 2 alternates. I'm
I did
happy
have
to- Okay.
a clarifying question on that.
Okay, go ahead, trustee Mejia. Was
no,
it
I was
trustee
just-
Mejia?
No, it was trustee
I was-
Lopez.
Oh, it was trustee Lopez. So this is not Zoom, so I can't tell who was talking, and I saw it looked like trustee Mejia was talking. So go ahead, trustee Lopez.
I was gonna mention that I don't know if trustee Urban had wanted to. I know that we were the subs for last week.
Mhm.
I don't know if you wanted to do that for the year.
Okay, let's.
I don't know if that conversation was brought up, but
Do we want to table this for next board meeting?
That's probably a good idea. That way he can weigh in on what he'd like to do, if he'd still like to serve in that capacity. So,
Okay.
yes, but we'll keep,
I could be the alternate. I'd be okay. I mean, I'm okay with that if that's what trustee Irvin wanted to do.
I'm also okay with being an alternate.
Yeah.
So we can.
Sylvan is just in my area, so I thought
yeah, I was wondering, so sometimes that's helpful to have somebody who lives in the area. I know sometimes there's a conflict too. Are you in the Melrose? Are you in the Melrose area? Do you pay Melrose fees? Do you know?
No, I do not.
Okay, that's better, because that way, sometimes there's a conflict and you cannot vote because you pay Melrose fees. I just found that out from some attorneys recently, because I've served on for about 15 years on that board. So, okay, so let's see. Well, let's have this discussion. Are you good with postponing? Well, trustee Lopez, did you say you'd be good with being an alternate?
I'm okay with that.
All right. So I need
Is there a
somebody to-
problem with postponing it and giving
No.
John the chance
There
to
shouldn't be.
weigh in?
No, the next meeting will be until May, so we got plenty of time. I believe so.
Yes, right. Yeah, so the next board meeting, this board meeting, we can do it at the next board meeting. So we will, so I need a motion, I believe, to move this to a future meeting.
So moved.
Trustee Brown says a motion, and then I saw trustee Myas just make a second on moving it to the next board meeting. So do you have any discussion on that? Did you have anything to say, Mr. Trustee Mejia?
No, I was just gonna second, but I think I pressed a
Okay.
hand. I pressed a.
Okay. You did. I know you did it correctly. I just said, okay. I mean, you did it with that. That was good. Okay, so all those in favor of moving the CFA selection to the next board meeting, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Okay, I see as a unanimous vote, so no opposition. Moving on then to the next one is the selection of board representative to the California Association of Large Suburban School Districts Board of Directors. So this one is a meeting that meets every month. It's a half-day meeting. Sometimes it's a full day, depending on if we go back to Sacramento again. I've been serving on this one. I've appreciated serving on this one, but I wanted to see if anybody else would like to. I worked it around in my calendar because they usually meet on Thursday or Friday morning from like 10 to 12. So that's what our meetings have been. So is there anyone else? So then we'll take a motion for the Cal SSD Board of Directors. I have a motion from Trustee West or Trustee Marks to serve, continue serving. Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? A second by Trustee Mejia. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Selection of board representative, which is usually the vice president, and one additional board member to serve on the district audit committee. So my understanding is Trustee West has been serving on this as vice president, and then who has been the other one? Do we know?
I can look it up. Let me look.
Okay, it might be Walker, or it might have been Newman. Okay, so that's fine. So
It was Marks, Lopez, and West for the
Okay.
audit for this year.
all right. On audit, okay, and that wasn't the budget advisory committee. That's different.
It was Marks and West.
It was Marks and West.
Audit
Okay,
committee.
Was I
thank you.
looking at
That's
the?
what
I
it
must have been looking.
I did not receive an email on when to meet, so that was interesting. So, because Trustee West said she met. So, all right. So we need a So vice president will be trustee Lopez, so he's automatically there, and then we need another member to serve. So who would like to serve on the district audit committee? I see you all looking around. Trustee Mejia? Okay, or trustee Maestros? All right, give me your thoughts. I saw you both, so go ahead.
I could be the alternate.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that because I think trustee Maestros might be on another committee next time. So is that good? So so do we have a motion for trustee Lopez and then trustee Mejia?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, trustee Lopez makes a motion. And so for the district audit committee, all those, and trustee Mejia is the additional board member, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Do we need a second, Cindy?
We did. It was, a second. Who? Oh, I thought I saw a second. Trustee Maestas seconds it. Thank you. So trustee Lopez motions and then trustee Maestas seconded it. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye. Okay. Trustee, it passes unanimously. Okay, now I am passing the gavel. I don't know how this works, but let's see if I can do it as the picture is at the corner. I'm passing it down to you. There you go. Okay. All right. There we go. Trustee West, now you are sitting in my seat, and I look forward to your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving on to A9, which is approval of consent agenda. So before we start, Ms. Noonan, do we have any comments from the public on the consent agenda?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda tonight?
So moved.
It was moved by trustee Brown and seconded by trustee
Second.
Maestros. And all those in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. So next we're moving on to A10, which is the approval of the order of discussion action items. So do I hear, do I need to go out to Ms. Noonan for any public comment on this one? No? So do I hear a motion to approve the order of discussion action items?
I so moved to order discussion items.
Trustee O'Mara, and is seconded by
I'll second.
trustee Marks. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay? Okay, this passes unanimously. And now we're moving on to A11, which is the period for public presentation. Ms. Noonan, are there any comments from the public tonight?
Yes, we do have comments from the public. These are all comments that are for the period of the period for public presentation. We don't have any comments on any items in particular. So I will read through the comments. I believe there are 7 total. So I will go ahead and read those at this point. Okay, the first comment comes from Sandy Bacchus, and her comment is, regardless of the colored tier system, all schools must reopen. The CDC just announced that they support the opening of all schools, and as a parent and a local teacher, I'm asking the board to begin this process for all students, and all students is emphasized. My son is a freshman at Gregory, and he tells me over and over that cheating is extremely prevalent while remote learning. With access to Alexa, Siri, and the internet, maintaining high grades has been a cinch for him and his friends. However, don't ask any of them what they have actually learned. They won't be able to tell you. Furthermore, my son's personality has changed, and he's become more withdrawn and prefers to stay in his room for hours upon hours at a time. Watching this as a parent is heartbreaking. Last year, he was active in wrestling and other after-school activities. It's difficult to believe it's the same child. This has changed him. We know COVID's recovery is over 99%. We know it hardly affects children under the age of 18, yet we are willing to sacrifice our children's education and mental health for this, in quotes, mysterious virus that isn't all that mysterious as it turns out. The 11-year-old student in Lodi who took his own life during Zoom, that's a wake-up call to all of us who are educated and have common sense. Please open the schools regardless of what the tyrant who we call governor says. His kids are in school, and I demand for my kids to be as well. That concludes her comment. The next comment comes, and by the way, some of these comments, we limit them to 250 words, so some of them were slightly over. So just in case the individuals are listening, we do have to stop at the 250 word mark. The next comment comes from Sebastian Bacchus, and his comment is, "Hello, I am a freshman at Grigori High School. It infuriates me on how bad you guys are running the schools. Kids are becoming depressed and suicidal over you people being afraid over a cold. For ages 0 through 19, the survival rate is 99.95%, according to the CDC. It pains me to see you people act like this, only caring about your own selfish needs and not caring about the students' health and life. This year, I have learned absolutely nothing. Everyone I know cheats on every test and quiz there is. I haven't seen anyone except my teachers teach a boring lesson that nobody pays attention to for an hour and a half. You guys expect us to do this like it's second nature, when in reality, it just makes me want to kill myself. How about all the kids with terrible home life? Somebody shot himself on a Zoom call because of how, I think I can say, crappy you people are. Like, seriously, you guys aren't pressing for anything? If you are so scared over this, then quit your job. I mean it. You guys are in the school board to have the best interest for the students, but all you guys are doing is making sure everything that is passed only helps your selfish desires. I have so many friends who were in honors, happy, and maintaining 3.5 to 4.0 GPAs, and this year they are all failing normal classes, and I have lost all hope for this damned state." And that's the conclusion of the comment. The next comment comes from Emily Shores. She's a parent. She's commenting on seniors' mental health. And her comment is, "We need to find a way to get our seniors back to school before half of them drop out. Have we explored options for all seniors on campus in cohorts? My own senior is typically a good student and in danger of not graduating at this point. No amount of pressure from us is working. They need their peers and access to their teachers in person. I know we are at the mercy of state orders, but how do we save our seniors from dropping out or failing out? We have to act now. What percentage of our seniors are in danger of not graduating compared to most years? Who is appealing to the state on their behalf to help get them on campus? Please save our seniors. Their mental health and their education is suffering." Emily Shores. The next comment comes from Susan Mason, and she's commenting on junior high and high schools to reopen. "My name is Susan Mason, and my niece is a freshman at Grigori, and I'm calling, this was over the phone, and I'm calling because we are anxious on the prospect of the schools opening, junior high and high school, opening in January. We understand that depending on the tier color, I'm sorry, it's kind of disjointed. That is, we are expecting to be back in red in order for schools to reopen. However, regardless of the tier color, we are asking for schools to reopen junior highs and high schools." Then she provides her number if you have any questions. "This tier color situation can go on and on throughout next school year. I think that it's time for our schools to reopen for all the students to return to school. Thank you so much." My apologies for that one being a bit disjointed. Okay, the next comment comes from Sandra Nunez, a teacher at Tuolumne, and she's commenting on wanting to close schools. "My name is Sandra Nunez, and I am a teacher at Tuolumne. Thank you for serving on our board, and welcome to our new members, Maestas and Mejia. The governor issued a stay-at-home order, yet our schools in the highest hit areas for COVID-19 remain open. The 95351 zip code has the highest COVID-19 case rate in the county. The prevalence of low-income, multi-generational households contributes to the spread because families have close contact with each other and have difficulty isolating because they cannot afford to take time off of work when ill. Sick children within these households can go to school and are not required to divulge COVID results. If a child is symptomatic and goes to school, they may be sent home due to possible COVID exposure. However, a sibling of that child within the same household is not required to go home. Families are not required to be transparent with health information. A child may be coming from a positive COVID home, yet attend school without notifying school personnel. We are relying on families to be transparent with personal health information. Unfortunately, this is not foolproof. Remaining open as our community and ERs are experiencing a surge is unethical. You have a moral obligation to safeguard the health of our students, families, staff, and the community. I implore you to think of us all and to motion to close our doors after Christmas break to allow time for the cases in the ER to stabilize. And the next comment comes from Epi Chung. Epi is a teacher at Everett Elementary, and this is regarding classified staff, paraprofessionals. The comment is, I don't think the public knows all the work that the classified staff does behind the scenes in our elementary schools. When the students arrive, our yard duties, paraprofessionals, and cafeteria staff unlock the gates and pass out breakfasts at our 4 different entry points. Additional paraprofessionals stay in the classrooms to supervise the students while they eat. We have 14 classrooms. Our custodians clean, disinfect, receive shipments, replace filters, set up our air purifiers, meet with district maintenance people for repairs, installations, etc. Our paraprofessionals here at Everett were instrumental in helping to install the desk shields. It was not an easy task. Our paraprofessional help supervise the students at recess and lunch, and our classified staff help us prepare materials for material pickup days. Please do not ignore their hard work and contributions to elementary schools. The last comment comes from Joe Cortez. Joe is the press officer for the Legacy Health Endowment, and he's promoting some free resources that they have available. Hello, my name is Joe Cortez, and I'm the press officer for Legacy Health Endowment. We cover 19 zip codes in Stanislaus and Merced counties. I just wanted to let staff, board members, and families know that there are free resources available on our website, and the website is www.legacyhealthfoundation, all one word, .org, in both English and Spanish. We're very excited about our Parents' Guide to Social Media, which is available now, as well as our Guide to Online Video Gaming, which is coming very soon. I'll be watching tonight's meeting online and available for any questions. And I actually should add, we did work with the Legacy Health Endowment to promote some of their social media awareness resources in the excellent parent training that Mady Herrera and her team do out of Student, Parent, and Community Support Services. So thank you for your comment, Mr. Cortez. And that concludes the public comment.
You're muted, President West.
Thank you, Ms. Noonan. Thank you for that. We're moving on now to B1, which is our student representative report. Carson Carranza, welcome.
Hello. Hi, everyone. The Inter-High Council and I met for the last time of 2020 last week. Last week, December 7th through December 11th, was our district-wide book drive. We received hundreds, possibly over 1,000 book donations between the 7 participating high schools. I'm extremely proud of all the high school sites for publicizing this event and encouraging their students to donate books and support the organization Reach Out and Read. We have not had the opportunity to count the books yet, but we will soon. Unfortunately, Reach Out and Read sites in Modesto have temporarily stopped receiving donations due to COVID. But as soon as the sites reopen, we will be sure to donate them to the organization. And the books that do not meet the criteria for children's books will be donated to Good Samaritan. In addition to the book drive, high school leadership programs have been busy supporting their student bodies. Bayer, Enox, and Davis, and Modesto High School all carried out giveaways for their students and dropped off prizes at their students' houses. Bayer and Downey both led successful program fundraisers, and other high schools have kept a solid presence in social media. On December 3rd, I had the opportunity to attend the CSBA Student Board Members Workshop, and it was extremely rewarding. I had the opportunity to network with student board members across the state, specifically about the failing grades issues that is present in many districts. Failing grades during distance learning have disproportionately affected low-income students who do not necessarily have additional resources to supplement their learning. The board members I met with, we devised 2 solutions to help aid this issue. The first being to equitably reopen school campuses. This is a point that I've emphasized at past meetings, mainly involving the safe learning hubs. I was very pleased to learn today that my high school and other high school campuses are opening 1 week early in second semester to host learning hubs and support students who have failing grades before first semester grades are finalized to get them on track for graduation. The second solution for failing grades is to eliminate assignment scores of 0 for missing assignments and replace them with 50%. This is not meant to incentivize unsatisfactory work ethic, rather to support students and help them not be incredibly discouraged by 0%, as these grades can be very hard to rebound from. This solution should only remain in effect during distance learning and return to normal once we are back in person. Right now, it is important that the students who were on track to graduate before distance learning still have an equitable education experience. On December 8th, I also attended the District Wellness Committee with Avni from Grigori and Rana from Modesto High, and we discussed possible ways to provide additional mental health support for students and are currently researching possible specific changes to student wellness policy in the spring. Thank you for listening to my update, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just want to say thank you. You have a passion for some of the same things I have a passion about. And so I'm glad to see that you're so involved and you're not only looking at what's wrong, but you're looking at solutions on how to fix it. So thank you for that. Do we have any comments or questions from any of the board members at this time? Yes, Trustee Brown?
Oh, you just muted yourself.
Sorry. Went the wrong direction. So, successful book drive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there still a way that the public can donate to that drive? And how would they go about it?
They were at the high school campuses. The book donation boxes are at the front of the high schools. I believe right now, most schools have put them in a room for storage over winter break because that's where we're going to be able to, we're probably not going to be able to pick them up till after winter break, but the book drive ran until last Friday, so I'm not sure if all the high schools are still accepting books or not.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And I think we're ready to move on to B2, which is our report on the distance learning dashboard. And I believe Mr. Sulkin will be giving this presentation.
Yes. Good evening, President West and Vice President Lopez and Board of Trustees and Dr. Noguchi. First, I wanted to kind of ground us in, before I turn over to my colleague here, Ryan Reynolds, the Director of Assessment and Evaluation, kind of ground us in the technology just a little bit since it's been about a year since we've looked at this system, as well as we have new board members, and then tie it to the why and the what of this system, what it means to our district and K-12 in general. First, just kind of a reminder, what is a data warehouse? That's what this dashboard's based upon. It's basically the aggregation of different points of data from various systems. In our example, it would be PowerSchool. It'd be Schoology for today's presentation. But typically you have, whether it's private or corporate America or even government, you aggregation of multiple systems into one database, and they call that a data warehouse. And that's what our dashboard's based upon. So the function of it, as you'll see here from Ryan in just a second, is one of the purpose of is make it easy, accessible data. Data-driven decisions are very critical for K-12, and especially at our institution as we change the culture of being data-driven and also trying to do continuous improvement. You need a tool that gives you access to that data at your fingertips. You can do that the old long way where you get out Excel sheets, you do cross-correlation filters, and that's very time-consuming, and that doesn't empower the user, and that's what our district is about, empowering our customers, our users, which are teachers and admin, for tools and technology, meaning technology is a tool. So that's kind of what the concept is behind the dashboard. And specifically, highly functioning districts use dashboards to not just do postmortem, but do predictive analysis. And that's what you'll see as we go through this presentation and the one in January, especially when we look at the counselor's dashboard. We have the ability now with this system that we built up from scratch, and we've also used industry tools to give you the visual picture that you'll see here from Ryan, to be able to do our own predictive analysis of where students are heading so we can be more proactive in trying to steer them maybe back in the right direction or encourage them in the right direction that they're already heading, specifically when we get into the counselor's dashboard. But right now, I'm going to take a step back and turn it over to Ryan so he can kind of go through our distance learning dashboard that the administration and teachers have had access to this fall semester to help us with this big change in our educational process with COVID. So go ahead, Ryan.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. And all my buttons are working. That's good news. All right. So tonight, we wanted to take a moment and recognize the work that's been done and dashboard tools that have been created to support schools with the tremendous challenge of tracking attendance, ensuring students are logging in during distance learning, and intervening when students are struggling to stay engaged. I'd also like to give a special thanks to the development team in the IT office that was instrumental in building the dashboard that I'll be showing you tonight. Ultimately, I'm really just their satisfied customer, as you'll see. So this clearly aligns with our work to monitor achievement and equitable access, track student engagement, increase communication, improve efficiency, and maintain or increase our enrollment. So as a result of COVID-19 and our school closures, California updated and passed a number of Senate bills to focus the work that districts were doing to educate students during these school closures. The language in SB 98 required districts to more closely monitor how students were attending school. And I put air quotes around attending because it's very different, as you know. So for instance, if a student logged in to their online class but had technical difficulties and couldn't participate, teachers needed to document that as a result of this legislation. So we asked ourselves, how are we going to enable our teachers and our schools to do this work? In our district, our students engage in online instruction using their online classroom called Schoology. It's similar to other learning management systems you may have heard of, such as Google Classroom or Blackboard. Given the attendance tracking requirements of this new Senate bill, we found it important to track when and how often students were logging in using their online classroom. This would enable our schools to document and follow up with those students who were not engaging in the learning. As you heard come up a few times even tonight. So once we determined what source of data, which Russ was just talking about, there's all sorts of locations where we can pull data from, but once we determined the source that we wanted to track, we had to figure out how we would break down the data for our dashboard. And what should we calculate? In this case, we settled on looking at the count and the rate of students actively logging in and using their online Schoology classroom. As an aside, we also found parent and staff usage to be potentially an informative metric moving forward. So beyond simple counts or percentages, hey, you know, everyone loves a good bar chart. So it makes it easier to grasp a lot of data quickly and to break it down into other meaningful metrics. So our distance learning dashboard also provides usage statistics by school. You can see here time frame, ethnicity, EL status, and special programs, and then some. So as an example, I might want to see the learning engagement of our English learners at Davis High School. So from the dashboard, in order to do that, I would use the filter pane on the left side of the screen. And by selecting the institution filter button, I can identify Davis High School as the school for which I'd like to filter the data. And then I would select the purple arrow to go back to the data dashboard. So in this example, you can see how I've filtered for the students at Davis High School and hovered my cursor or mouse over the English learner data bar. It indicates that on this day, 92.99% of the English learner students at Davis High School engaged in learning via Schoology, their online classroom. You can also see that by comparison, those English learner students are exceeding the English-only students in engagement, as are the RFEP students, or otherwise known as the English learners who were reclassified as fluent in English. You can see how the filters are a hugely powerful addition to our dashboard, enabling our school administrators to hone in on exactly the student population that they're hoping to search or research. They can target a specific historical day or term, identify a specific grade level, demographic group, or even a special program such as the Modesto Virtual Academy. That in and of itself is an area that we might want to research and figure out how that group is doing. Of course, merely seeing overall percentages and counts will only tell us part of the story. The power behind this dashboard is the ability of the school to generate a list of students who aren't engaging in learning so that they can intervene. To get a list of students, a user only has to select the drill through button that you see here on any chart, bar, or graph. It'll generate a list of students represented by the bar of data that you're looking at. Using the example that I noted earlier, the EL students at Davis High School, a user could right-click on that same data bar and select drill through. This would provide a screen like you're looking at here. Not only can we see whether they were active on a specific day, but we can also see the last day the student did engage in learning. This tells us if they've been disconnected for more than one day, and it also lets us sort the list by those who are in need of more in need of intervention. So those who logged in longer ago compared to perhaps some of the other students on the list. Finally, the system captures and maintains historical data. So in this case, we really do have a time machine that allows you to select a prior school day and to determine both overall student engagement and specific families who really need a phone call or a visit right now. After training our schools on how to use this dashboard, it's become a regular practice for them to log in each day and find students who aren't engaging in learning. They work with the office staff to contact families in need of support and adjust the attendance records for students who are mistakenly marked absent but actually engaged in the learning that day. As we prepare for a day where school closures are no longer a factor, maybe that's a ways out, we need to start the discussion of how this tool might still be useful for other purposes. This might include tracking the use of these new student devices at the elementary level. Are they being used and how often? And potentially monitoring the ongoing work of our students in the Modesto Virtual Academy, as we've seen a higher increase in the students participating in that program. Though getting here was definitely a journey and a substantial amount of work for our IT department, the payoff has certainly been worth it. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them, and I thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you very much for that report. I see Trustee Maestas. Would you like to go first, please?
Sure, thank you. I have a couple of questions. I don't need the tech question, but the displays on the data bars. I'm noticing that there's, the bars. I'm sorry, I'm a statistics guy, so I see the bars, and they're all very, very high, right? We got a lot of the participation rate is pretty high throughout, but when you got a bar that's going from 0 to 100, you don't often see the changes that are smaller. Is there a way that a user or somebody can change the scale to maybe look at 65% to 100 to see if there are any significant differences among some of these subgroups? I'm just looking at the active student by race and or student rate by ethnicity. I kind of want to zoom in there to see if there's any differences that need to be considered.
Yeah, so it might be easier if I go back here. Let's look at that slide together. An example, an overall slide. So I believe what you're talking about is, in your example, the EL rates. So all the blue was, all the way over to the right side over here. And it really makes it hard to differentiate between them. And certainly, if you put your mouse over them, now I'm not using the live version because I didn't want to accidentally reveal student information tonight in a public board meeting. But if you hover over them, it will give you tooltips that give you the exact percent of each. And I will be honest, I was right there with you. That was one of my first criticisms of the early edition of this dashboard. And so we adjusted it. And then I found that as I started playing with the filters over here for some of our student groups, that in fact, on certain days, some of their participation rates fell below my threshold. And so they dropped through the floor and disappeared. And so we're still trying to figure that out, how to adjust that threshold so that, it makes the top of the blue line more pronounced for different groups. But we also don't want to miss out on anybody that we need to be intervening with by doing that. It's a great question.
Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Brown?
Yes, the participation rates that we have, is this, one of my concerns is that I'm hearing over and over again that our students in our secondary classes don't have to have their cameras on. They just need to be showing that their computer is on at the beginning of a class. Is there any way that the dashboard can recognize whether there's any actual participation in the activity of the class?
So on this specific dashboard, it's not currently set up to check whether or not their camera's on, nor do we have a data source to really track that right now. But it does allow us that the actual data source that this is pulling from is from Schoology itself. And with that, within that particular dashboard, when our school administrators are using Schoology, they are able to see more granular data like you're talking about. So, how many items were turned in and at what time. And you can even zero in on a particular student and their activity. But on this dashboard, it's really just meant to be that top level targeting of students who are falling through the cracks in terms of just even at the most minimal level, logging in and participating in Schoology for the day. And there are students who are not. So that is definitely when you're trying to target your resource, somebody that you want to work with right away. But that more granular type of research that you're talking about does get done. And oftentimes at the teacher level, when they're looking back at the day, they're able to see some of that analytic data that you're talking about at the student level, which is really powerful. And then, of course, any other Schoology staff user would have the ability to be able to do the same.
Plus, there's ed tech tools such as Kahoots where they can do check for understanding during the day just to engage the students. So there's a lot of different options there, too.
Okay. I see no more questions from the board. Ms. Noonan, do we have any comments from the public?
No, not on this item.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Seeing none. This was just a report. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for that report. We're going to move on now to B3, which is the report on long-term English learners in Modesto City Schools. I believe this is Dr. Odell.
Thank you. Good evening, President West and Board of Trustees and our new trustees. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, and everybody watching online and our colleagues. I am going to turn it over to Maricela Mota, our Administrator of Special Projects English Learners, in just a second. But what I wanted to share with you tonight is we're presenting this twofold. One, we want to give you the State of the Union for English learners, if you will, and how things are going. And you'll see some statistics on the types of students that we have in terms of newcomers or those who have been with us for quite a while, our ethnicities, our languages we speak. And we're really going to focus in tonight on what's happening with our long-term English learners. Maricela is going to give you an acronym list because, as you may have heard, the world of English learners is full of acronyms. So I want to thank you tonight for allowing us to come with you to you and to share what's happening in the world of English learners in CIPD. Metasela, are you ready?
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So good evening, President West, members of the board, Dr. Noguchi, cabinet, and guests. My name is Marisela Mota, just as Lauren just introduced me, the Administrator of Special Projects for English Learners here at Modesto City Schools, and I work under the CIPD department. Tonight's presentation will focus on long-term English learners. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is to review our MCS current English learner data, since we do have new members in the board, and then to also report on our long-term English learner data trends that we saw from 1819 to 1920, and also report our 1920 LTEL data, mostly a comparison of SPED versus non-SPED students. Then we will go over some site trends that we're seeing, and then our next steps for our department. So as Dr. Adele mentioned, there are some acronyms and terms I would like to review with you before we get started. The world of ELs does have many acronyms. So here is some of them. I want to focus EL. If I say EL, it's English learner. LTEL is a long-term English learner, which is a student that's been in the U.S. school for longer than 6 years and not making progress on LPAC, which is their language assessment that they take yearly, and on the state assessment of SBAC for ELA. And then, of course, the goal for any English learner student is to be redesignated, which is RFEP. So this means the student is redesignated as fluent English proficient. So let's begin by reviewing our current EL data. So in Modesto City Schools, we have a total of 24% current English learners. It usually fluctuates between 24 to 25%, but currently we have 24%, and 13% are RFEP students that are currently being monitored. So this is a total of 37% that our department is responsible for monitoring. So current ELs as well as RFEP students that are being monitored. So we have an EL in every single grade level at every single school. So this is important to us, except 5th grade at Lakewood. So of our current English learners, 89.7% of their primary language is Spanish. And then the two biggest ones after that are 1.7% of our students' primary language is Arabic, and 1.6% of our students is Farsi. We do have 21 ethnicities, but 86% of our students are Hispanic or Latino. So this is some incoming English learner data. So this slide shows our incoming EL data for 1819 and 1920 for our elementary district, so K-8 students. Although we have no impact on how students perform on the initial LPAC, which is the result you're seeing, this data is the first data point of our incoming EL students. It allows us to see where students are so we can provide appropriate supports to so they're reclassified and so that they don't become English learners. This is why we included this data. So in 1920, of the students that took the initial LPAC, 12% were IFAP, meaning that we do not monitor the students as an English, or we don't count them as an English learner. We still monitor all students. And then 70% are novice English learners and 20% are intermediate. So novice is they're minimally developed in their English language skills. It's important for us to know this so we can provide the right supports in order to reclassify them as soon as we can. The next data piece is the same data, but this is for our Modesto City High District, so for grades 9 through 12. Here, it's important to notice that 73% of our students that come into us in grades 9 through 12 are novice students, so students at the minimally developed level, so emerging level, if you want to look at your ELD standards.
So, Metasela, can you go back to that slide? I just want to point out, if you look on the right hand of your slide, we had 62.9, so 63% of our students, the very first time they take a test with us, required by the state of California, they are newcomers. They're new to the English language. Notice that this year, on the left-hand side of your screen, when they've taken that first test, That's gone up 10%. So students that are in secondary, that's our 9th through 12th graders, taking a test for the very first time to tell us about what they need, 10% has increased in being a new English speaker, English learner. So that definitely tells us that we have to change what we're doing for those families, for those students, because that number has changed dramatically in 1 year.
Yes, and you also see the dramatic difference in the IFEP students. So we were at 29% in 18-19, and then in 19-20 we were at 20%. This could mean that we had more students in the 18-19 school year from another state in the U.S. and they come here, they fill out their home language survey, and one of the questions is something other than English, and then when they take the assessment, they're considered an IFEP because they have had schooling either in another country or another state. So let's look at our LTEL data trends. So our definition of a long-term English learner, just as a reminder, they're enrolled in grades 6 through 12, have been in a U.S. school for 6 years or more, and have not been making progress in LPAC or in CASP for ELA. The at-risk definition, you will see some data pieces later on in the presentation for at-risk students. I do want to just include that here. It's for any student in grades 3 to 12. They have been in the U.S. 4 to 5 years. They remained at the same proficiency level for LPAC and CASP. So they're not making progress. Here is our data for MCS Elementary. You can notice here for our elementary district, we dropped our LTEL numbers by 5.5% from 18-19 to 19-20. And then the state and the county had very similar, pretty close data pieces for our long-term English learners. Our goal for our department is to keep dropping our LTEL numbers, hopefully getting them reclassified from 654 students to 622 students. Same with our Modesto City High District. We had a drop of 4.7% in our long-term English learners from 18-19 to 19-20, and our goal again is to drop by 5% from 816 students to 776 students. So in order to make that happen, we needed to look at the sites that had a bigger drop than the state for our long-term English learners. So on the screen you're seeing Beard, Ensland, Everett, Hanshaw, Mark Twain, Roosevelt, Byers. So some of the sites that had a bigger drop than the state for our long-term English learners. So this is just a data point for us. So we decided to meet with administrators to discuss these data points. I won't talk about it now. It will come up in the next slide about what we found in those trends.
I just want to make sure, I don't think that we've spelled it out, obviously, or not obviously. SPED is a very common acronym we use. That's a student's special education.
Yeah, so I also wanted to look at data pieces for English learners that are in SPED, so special education, and also those that are not in special education. So 40.5% of our non-SPED ELs are long-terms currently based on the data we received for 19-20. While 66% of our SPED ELs are long-term, so this is pretty high. So we want to focus in this area. 9-12. Same if you look at the first row. These are for our students that were in grades 9 through 12. And of our ELs that were non-SPED, 45.7% of them were long-term English learners, while 67% of them are long-terms that are also SPED EL. So we discussed some site meeting trends. So some of the common trends that helped decrease our long-term English learner rates at those sites, what was stated to us by our administrators was that they had an academic counselor. They had professional learning communities with an EL focus. They had site-focused instruction norms. Those are some of the ones that the sites mentioned a couple of times, so we decided to put them there. ASIC questions, sentence frame, and word walls. Also, the sites that were successful in lowering the long-term rates said that having an opportunity to do English learner observations to really focus on the speaking, listening, reading, and writing were important. The reason we're bringing this to you is because if we see that our data is being successful in lowering our long-term rates, we need to see what's in common so we duplicate that in all of our sites. So also they said that having coaches as instructional models was important, parent participation, and of course translation supports for our families, so we are all engaged in the same goal. So the next steps for our department are important. Because the last year, through FPM, which we cleared our findings, we had a lot of work to create our systems to make sure we had a system in place. So now is where the work comes in. So our next step in our department is to amp up our professional development for administrators, counselors, and teachers on in these areas: ELD standards, designated ELD, integrated ELD, especially instructional strategies. That's what's going to make movements for our students. It's in the classrooms. Differentiations for our newcomers, for our ELs that are at different levels, emerging, expanding, bridging, and also our long-term English learners, which we have many. And also for students that are in our SPED population, so the students have the appropriate accommodations during their LPAC assessment.
With that, again, I just want to add into that. So with FPM, again, those are the acronyms that we provided to you previously. The federal program monitoring comes in every 4 years typically, and they look to see how we're spending our monies. One of those categories is specifically for English learners. And as we know, they come from many different areas of monitoring, but in the English learner programs, we had, Maricela, can you remind me how many findings did we have? I think it was around 8.
We had 4 official findings for each district, so yes, 8, and then some unofficial findings that we promised to work on.
So in the end, 4 in elementary and 4 in high, and our auditors really said that we needed to work on our structures, meaning when do we do designated ELD in the classes for our English learners? How do we monitor them? How do we make sure that their grades are staying up? How do we help them get out of that LTEL status and become redesignated and move on? The structures are what they really called out that we needed to have in place. And we're happy to share that that's the PD that we're providing. That's what we're looking at. And just last week, a week and a half ago, we cleared all of our English learner program findings. They've approved our plans moving forward for the structures in place. And what you're seeing here in our next steps are directly related to the findings and how we are moving forward with really improving our programs, making those structures permanent. It's not just a promise we made to the federal government and won't follow through. We are following through with our commitments to improve our programs. Thank you, Maricela.
Thank you. So as well as professional development, we want to focus on site instructional strategies for each site to have their instructional focus. And it's always better when it comes from the teachers, administrators, and all of us lined up, because then there's a buy-in from everyone. Again, having EL classroom observations, so when we walk through, we can see if our English learners are listening, speaking, reading, writing, and at what amounts. Is it 1 time? Is it 5 to 7 times? And then, of course, we're going to continue doing our further LTEL and SPED analysis. I am not a SPED expert, so I want to put that out there. But we plan on having a further LTEL and SPED analysis. And of course, an outreach to our families and our community. So our focus, to close it up, is to focus on site instructional strategies to ensure that all our students and our class are getting supports consistently across our classrooms. We plan on continuing our outreach to our families and our community. And again, thank you for your time. Any questions? Let me unshare so I can see all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see Vice President Lopez has his hand up.
Yes, one of the things that I saw and I remember from the recommendations was the restructuring around DLAC and ELAC. Do we have a status report on that? What's
Yes.
being done? And I wanted to see if we can come back later on and when that process is a little bit further ahead and actually give a report on that a little bit more fleshed out.
Okay, perfect. We have had consistent number of parents attending our ELAC or DLAC meetings for DLAC for the district. We have had 16 to 17 parents at each meeting, even through distance learning. So we appreciate having consistency, which we did not have last year, even through being in person. So the fact that we can have consistent parents through a distant learning environment, it's a win for us. We are still looking how to improve our ELAC and DLAC. It's a start. It's not the end all be all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
Do we have further questions from the board at this time? Trustee Maestas?
Hi, thank you for that report. I have a question about the designated ELD structures that you talked about. What are those changes in the designated, I mean, you can come back and give a report on what those structures look like and after you've done them, or not. But I just was wondering what those, what we were missing from those kids.
One of our findings for our FPM was our EL students weren't consistently placed in designated ELD classes. So that was one of our restructuring to ensure all our K-12 students were in a designated ELD class. We do run a report from here in the district for 7-12 that says EL is not in ALD, because sometimes there's so much movement with our ELs in and out that we want to make sure that they are in the right classes. They deserve to be in the designated class so that they have appropriate supports.
Thank you. Trustee Mejia?
Yeah, I just want to commend the work that's been done so far, and definitely would like to take a deeper dive. There's a lot of stuff, and me being an English learner as well, I think I'm very passionate about this decision. I'm really excited to kind of dive in and potentially collaborate in any way that I can, or look at it. But I'm excited about what I'm hearing and kind of where the district is heading on this. I'm really excited to see as more work develops, and I like some of the findings, and I like how it's being focused, and some of the strategies. I think they're gonna be they look good. So I'm excited to continue to monitor the progress you guys do on this, and so thank you for the report today.
Thank you.
Seeing Trustee Maestas? You had another question?
Yeah, sorry, I just had this thought, and I had a question about the dashboards. These dashboards are these big things right now, right? Everybody wants a dashboard. So I'm wondering if we have an EL dashboard that might be in the works or something to think about, so that we can have a little bit of transparency and we can see what our data look like on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I love what you're thinking there. We actually, yes, on the data dashboard, you can look very deeply into the types of English learners, how they're doing with engagement and attendance, and what we initially have there. Our team is just probably about 2 weeks ago really start talking to Russ's team about not only do we appreciate the data that's coming in, but typically the data in the past has come in just with the blanket term, here's how your ELs did. And recently we went to Russ, we went to Ryan Reynolds, and we said, we want more. We want much more than just how the ELs are doing. We want to know how the LTELs are doing. We want to know how the newcomers are doing, because that data is so rich for us and then helps us, again, in the CIPD Curriculum Instruction Professional Development Department. It really takes us to that intentional focus for PD and where to support, where the coaches can support the teachers. So they actually just gave us our first report. And they said that they're reworking all the, I don't know, Russ, what the word is, but the filters, all the things behind the scenes to now be able to disaggregate all the way down to those specific types of ELs to help us. It's exciting.
Yeah, we want to make data-driven decisions for our students.
That's awesome. Thank you. Ms. Noonan, do we have any comments from the public?
No, not on this item.
Thank you. So any last comments from board members? And seeing none, we are going to take a little break here, about a 10-minute break. And I would like to go to Ms. Noonan to kind of fill us in on what's going to be happening during this break.
Sure. And it'll actually be a tiny bit longer than 10 minutes. We're looking at about 13 minutes. And the reason why is because we have some holiday cheer to share with the board members as well as our viewers. We have a wonderful video that was, it's a video compilation that was put together by Brandon Price. And Brandon is part of our visual arts and performing arts. He's a coordinator in that area. And the video that you're going to see, I won't go into every single name, but we do have performances from Johansson, Fremont Open Plan, several of our different elementary schools. We have some string quartets and string groups. We have some choir performances from La Loma. We also have the Beyer High Jazz Band and the Downey High Strings, Enoch's Marching Band, and the Mark Twain Junior High Choir. So I do want to have our IT team, I believe they are ready. Yes, they are. And I believe that each one will have the introduction of who it is who's doing this. We also are going to have this posted to our social media later this week. The concert actually airs on Thursday the 17th. It's actually about 40 minutes long. And then we'll post this excerpt on our social media on Friday. So go ahead and play the music, and we'll come back to you after the break. Thank you.
Silver bells, it's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear them ring, soon it will be Christmas Day. City sidewalks, busy sidewalks, dressed in holiday style. In the air there's a feeling of Christmas.
I play the flute and I attend the school William Garrison Elementary.
Hello, my name is Sarah Kraus. I play the clarinet, and I am from Fremont Open Plan. Today I'm going to be playing Old St. Nicholas. To hold with bounds of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Drop the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la.
When Santa, dressed in red, came crashing through the roof and landed in my bed. I thought it was a dream, but quickly did I wake. As soon as I heard Santa scream, I want a piece of cake. Oh, Santa Claus, you are much too fat. I was sleeping peacefully, but now my bed is flat. Oh, Santa Claus, how much do you weigh? I'm glad I'm not a reindeer that has to pull your sleigh.
Thank you so much for sharing that video. We appreciate it. So the board is going to count down the rest of their break, and then we'll get started shortly. Thank you again.
It looks like we're all back, I think. Am I missing anyone? No? All right, great. Well, welcome back. That was wonderful to hear all of our students on their instruments or singing. And, you know, I kind of miss this time of year when I could go in person and see these things. So it was great that we were able to see our students showcased in this way. We're going to go ahead and move on now to our next section, which is item B4. And this is going to be the approval of the first interim financial report. And Mr. Zierle, would you like to take it away, please?
I would. Thank you, President West. Good evening, trustees. Let me load my presentation here real quick. I'm not sure how fair it is for financial report to follow the amazing talent of our students, but I will give it my best effort. So here I am, Tim Zierle, Associate Superintendent of Business Services, and we're here to ask the board to certify our first interim financial report. It's what we do every December, but I have to take a moment, as I do every time I present our financial report, to just recognize the work of Senior Director Michelle Price and also Budget Manager Jennifer Garcia. They are the two people that are responsible for putting this report together and allow me to present to the board and to the community. So, and in thinking that we have two new board members, I've added a couple of slides that I hope will explain the process a little bit. For the new board members, I do recognize that you spent a week at CSBA. So if some of this is redundant to you, I apologize. I'm not sure what CSBA covered for new board members as far as financial reporting goes. But here's just a slide that shows an example of our budget reporting cycle beginning in June. And then I've always thought it kind of strange how new board members come on in the middle of our budget cycle, but that's the way it works with the election process. And so you can see December, we are here. This is our first interim financial report. And then you can see the other months, what to expect as a board member that is coming in the budget cycle. Beginning next month, we will present to you the governor's budget proposal for the next fiscal year. And then we have second interim financial report in March, and then back to June where we adopt the budget again and the LCAP. So just briefly, I wanted to share a slide as to what is a budget. Again, from our perspective as an administrative team to the board, it aligns with the District Goal 4, which is to ensure that the district is fiscally and operationally sound. But I want to point out it's a financial plan. This budget helps us show staff, the community, where we've been and where we are going. And most importantly, I think it's based on a set of assumptions and it's constantly changing. So just keep that in mind as we move forward through that budget cycle. And we have financial reporting updates throughout the year. More information just briefly about what is a budget. It includes unrestricted and restricted funds. And unrestricted funds are for the board to decide based on recommendations from the administration how we're going to spend those dollars. You'll probably hear a lot about local control funding formula funds, or LCFF. Those funds are technically unrestricted, but supplemental and concentration grant funds, even though they're unrestricted, they must be used to increase services for our most at-risk students. And then you can see some restricted funds that we have. They're received by an external source, and those dollars are legally restricted by the donor as to how we can spend those funds. So we're here to have the board certify our first interim report, which includes average daily attendance assumptions, or ADA, revenue assumptions, expenditure assumptions, a multi-year projection. You will see that referred to as an MYP. There's criterion standards that we go through that, and criterion standards outline changes from back in June when we adopted the budget to now. We have to explain what those changes are when they exceed a certain variance. So the first thing is our average daily attendance assumptions, and for this year, we are increasing our projected funded ADA by 66, a little over 66. This is the result from our annual ADA reporting, and this is unique to this year because we were funded last year because we were shut down. We were held harmless, and so we were funded based on our P2 ADA. Now, we do have some attendance for our programs. This particular one is for our county community schools. They're funded on annual, so at the time we adopted the budget, we did not know what the annual funding was through the end of the year. We now know that, and so we're pleased to be able to increase our funding for last year by 66 students, and our multi-year projection shows a flat enrollment for the subsequent years in our projection. You can see a graphical display of our average daily attendance, historical, and then our assumptions. And then obviously, for the new board members, you'll notice that we have a period of declining enrollment at the elementary district, which is the turquoise or the light blue shaded line on this graph. And for both districts, though, you can see that there's a flat line between 1920 and 2021. It's not that we did not decline, but it's that for this year, again, we're held harmless. So our funding for this year is already set at prior year levels. That's why 1920 and 2021 are equal. It's a flat line, but then you can see our projection after 2021 continues to decline for the elementary district with an increase to our high school district. This is just a pie chart of our revenue. The local control funding formula, or LCFF, makes up about 3/4 of our revenue. This was the intent. The intent of the local control funding formula was to put more control at the local level, which is at the board, and so about 73% of our dollars is from the local control funding formula, with 15% federal revenue, 10% state revenue, and then 2% would be categorized as local revenue in our budget assumptions. And this is the local control funding formula year-over-year changes. The current year we're in is 2021, and then the multi-year projection years 21-22 and 22-23. 0% COLA for this year. We were held harmless this year from last year. There's no increase to our COLA, and you're probably wondering, well, why is there a decrease in our base funding and supplemental concentration grant? That's because of our declining enrollment situation. So as we are declining, we receive less dollars year over year, and this is unique again about the COVID shutdown. 21-22, you would normally see brackets around this year, but because this year we are not counting our attendance, we're getting the attendance from the prior year. We have 1 year of flat funding, so we do in 21-22 next year multi-year projection. If there is a 2.5% COLA, again right now that's an assumption, we would see the full benefit of that because of the flat attendance year over year. But then beginning in 22-23, we expect to be back on an attendance collecting formula, which we would be declining. And so you see the result of that with the brackets in the revenue for the base funding and also supplemental and concentration. This is just, we are again, for the new board members, we are 2 districts, so we have to do 2 different formula calculations for revenue. The first one is for the elementary district, and you can see we are funded based on grade spans. Kindergarten through 3rd grade, 4th through 6th grade, and 7th through 8th grade. And then you can see the different formulas that or the amounts that are generated based on the student's grade level. Unduplicated percentage is 87.67%. For the elementary district, that drives our supplemental and concentration grant funding. So we have a total for the elementary district estimated funding for the local control funding formula of just shy of $155 million. And the same for the high school, we're funded on grade spans of 9th through 12th graders. We have less students in the unduplicated percentage at the high school level of 67.93%. So the high school district receives substantially less concentration grant funds than the elementary district. The total estimated funding for our high school district from the local control funding formula is $168 million. Other revenue assumptions at first interim that we did not have in June when we built the budget are listed here. Deferred and prior year revenue, and then any increases to either our grant entitlements or other program entitlements that we receive that we did not know back in June. We are now updating the budget for those dollars. These are increases to revenues for these various programs or areas. Expenditure assumptions, similar pie chart as our revenues is broken out for our expenditures. And then obviously the 3 largest pieces of this pie are for our employees, which would be certificated salaries, classified salaries, and benefits. And then you can see how our other expenditures are broken up based on the classification of the expenditures. You probably have heard a lot about pension reform and our employer obligations for either STRS or PERS. STRS is for our certificated employees, PERS is for our classified employees. And here you can see the percentages for each. In the current year, it's 16.15% for our STRS obligation and 20.7% for our PERS obligation. And then you can see for our multi-year projection, the percentage increases in the out years. For STRS, we have a little bit of a dip next year, which is nice. That's a welcome. But then in 22-23, it jumps to 18.1%. And then you can see that's the year over year either increase or decrease. In 22-23, STRS has a year over year increase of $3.3 million. For PERS, current year 20.7, and just 2 years from now, it's expected to go to 26.3%. That's a $3 million increase year over year, 22-23 from 21-22. But if you were to look at our current year, that would be a $4 million increase for PERS in our multi-year projection from the current year to 22-23. This just shows you we have gone through a period of good times. The state's economy was very healthy, and as a result, education funding showed that. And so we've gone through a period of years where, yes, our pension obligations have increased, but we've been given additional dollars for education funding to offset those pension reform obligations. And then you can see that in the current year, 2020-21, with the loss of revenue year over year, we still have our pension obligation increases. 21-22, that was the year that we're going to see minor projected revenue increases, but also that was the year, if you look back on the prior chart, where PERS actually dipped 0.15%. And then look at 22-23, the third year of our multi-year projection. If the revenue assumptions stay the same and the expenditure assumptions remain the same, that's the impact of the increase in our retirement obligation for our employees in 22-23. Other expenditure factors from back in June, we do know our first month enrollment, which drives our staffing and site allocations. Those have all been updated based on our current enrollment. They are reflected in the budget. We have posted to our expenditure side carryover amounts from last year. What we do is certain areas of our budget are allocated. If they're not spent, we do allow, in certain cases, for those funds to be carried over and then spent in the current year. And so what that does is we are now increasing our expenditures because we didn't spend it in the prior year. We're now projecting to spend it this year. So it does increase our overall expenditures, and it does add to our deficit because there's no offsetting revenue adjustment for this. It comes from our ending fund balance. We also have one-time approved expenditures that have now been added to the budget. They were not there back in June, but they are removed from the 2 years of our multi-year projection. And currently there are no projected increases in the budget or the multi-year projection for pending employee negotiations. We've added this just to kind of make sense of, you have about a 200-page document attached to your agenda, and in that document there's various columns that you're looking at. So what this shows you is our budget adoption column, which is where our projected expenditures were back in June. And then we had a 45-day revision. So we did this in August after we adopted the budget. You can see the adjustment there was to benefits because the enacted state budget was different than how we adopted our budget. So there was additional pension relief that was included in the state enacted budget that was not included at the end of June when we adopted a budget. So you can see the change there. And then the change between now, first interim, and the 45-day revision, $8.8 million has been added to our expenditure assumptions. And you can see where they're at, beginning with certificated salaries down to other outgo. And then we kind of just highlight what those are. And you can see the first one, as I explained, the adoption to 45-day revision was AB 84, pension reform adjustment. That was included in the enacted budget. That was not in the initial governor's proposed budget. And then 45-day revision to now, we do have employee settlements with our Modesto's Teachers Association and our management employees. We also have a site administrator wage comparability. That was for some of our certificated administrative staff at the sites. That is also included now. The aforementioned first month staffing and site allocation adjustments, and then other areas as well. So this is what makes up the majority of that $8.8 million increase from just a few months ago to now. We also have a multi-year projection, or an MYP. It is required by law, Assembly Bill 1200. We have to show that we can meet our financial obligations in the current year, but also subsequent 2 years. Multi-year projections they will show the impact of today's decision on tomorrow. It is based on a set of assumptions, and like our budget, the assumptions are constantly changing. For instance, if you go back to the very first slide, in January, we're waiting the release of the governor's proposal for next year. Right now, our multi-year projection for next year is based off of the enacted state budget, which was back in July. So things are going to change, and as soon as they change, then we have to change our set of assumptions, which will impact our projections for our multi-year projection. They are projections, they're not forecasts, and they are based on a set of assumptions that we know at that point in time. And we do know that they will change, and then you will see the changes each time we do a budget update for the board. For this particular multi-year projection, our assumptions are step and column costs That's a built-in 1% increase year over year. So just think about in a year we get zero COLA. We do have automatic built-in cost escalations for our employees for step and column increases. We do have the pension increases that are built in year over year. We do remove any one-time expenditures, anything that's been approved, whether it's carryover or cabinet approved one-time expenditures are removed from our multi-year projection, and then carryover and deferred accounts are also removed. This shows our current multi-year projection, beginning with the top line is our fund balance for our unrestricted reserves only. We started the year with $97.3 million. You can see for this year, we expect that to be decreased to $82 million and then $71 million down to $49.5 million. Go down to the bottom. I'm sure during CSBA they talked about your reserve percentages a lot. Last year, we ended the year with a 17% unassigned reserve percentage, very healthy for a district. But you can see how quickly our reserves get eaten into over the course of a multi-year projection when we are in a era of flat revenue projection. Zero COLA is projected in our budget, factor declining enrollment, and so you can see how our reserve percentage could decline with our assumptions during the multi-year projection. This just shows it on a graphical display, ending balance versus our unassigned balance in the current year and the multi-year projection. Items not included in our multi-year projection is potential savings from site closures. We have not been in normal school operations all year. We've been in a hybrid learning environment just recently. So there will be savings from having our schools not housing our students on a daily basis. Future impacts from collective bargaining agreements are not included in the multi-year projection, nor are any increases to our special education contribution for compensatory education. Criteria and standards, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is part of your packet. If you read it, it'll show you, it'll highlight certain areas of our financial report where we don't have, where the system tells us you're outside of the variance. These are the criteria that we had to explain and the reasons for why they were not within the variance. This happens every December when we look at our first interim from where we were in June. But it's just, we have to explain the changes and why our financial reporting system shows us as being outside of the variance in all of these following areas. All that being said, we are very pleased at this point in time to have a first interim positive certification. We're asking the board to certify the report with a positive certification based on our current set of assumptions and our existing levels of revenue and expenses for our district. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Searley.
All right, there we go.
I see Trustee Marks.
I'm going to try this. It was echoing a little bit there. Is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
I can hear you.
All right, good. Staff says it's okay too. Okay, just want to make sure. All right. I had two questions. So one is on the step and column. It's 1% year over year. Is that, how much is that approximately in millions? No?
I don't want to give a wrong number.
Okay.
I can get that for you though. I know Michelle Price is on here. You know, maybe I can get that before I'm done with the presentation.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. I just couldn't remember what it was. I was thinking it was between 3 and 5 million. I just couldn't remember what it is. So then the other one was deficit spending. Do you know, I know it's on criterion 8, it was deficit spending as a result of spending one-time carryover funds, projected step and column increases, and impacts of pension reform. I didn't know if we knew the amount that was this year. I know that's been something we've been keeping an eye on, and that we've been, I'm thankful that they're letting us level out the pension reform at least this year.
Are you asking if you, for the total projected deficit, or?
How much we're deficit spending?
Right now, it's about $8.8 million. That's our projection. Again, though, I want to point out that we have not assumed any savings from being in distance learning or hybrid learning for the majority for this year. Just for example, from March to June of last year, when we shut down, now we shut down completely with stay at home, we had about $18 million of our budget that we did not spend, that we had thought we were going to spend. So our any fund balance grew at the end of the year last year. We expect that to be very similar this year, and we will know that shortly after the first of the year when we can, and then that would be put into the second interim budget report. But that is not; those savings are not have not been calculated and they're not included right now. So we do have a projected deficit of, I believe it's $8.8 million overall.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because it was on the, when you said the expenditures this year was that, I didn't know if that was in the deficit spending or not. And then, so yeah, I'm thankful that that all the decisions that have been made in order to save money, to recapture students, and then I know the state budget is a lot better than we expected. So those are all good things going into this next year. So but those were a few questions that I had.
And
so thank you so much.
We do, it's about $3 million for step and column. That's what we budget year over year. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Is what we include in our budget and a multi-year projection for increases.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have other questions from the board at this time? Seeing none. Ms. Noonan, do we have any comments from the public?
No, not on this item.
Okay.
I see Trustee Mejia's hand up.
I see him now as well. Do you want to go ahead and do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have there was a point when you estimated 66.1688 projected. I don't remember the slide that was on.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That seems a little low to compare to the other numbers that were in the upper in the 90s. So I just saw that variance being a little bit high, and I was wondering why 66.16 when I thought I was maybe missing those numbers. 66.6% ADA projecting in one of the slides for ADA. Back, I don't remember the slide. I think it was towards the beginning.
Yeah. Yes, sir. It was in the beginning.
Yeah, towards the beginning because it said it was projected, but then we were when I saw the other slides, we were like in the 90% ADA. Maybe I misread that. I'm not sure if I'm being clear with my question or my comment. We projected 66.16% for next year for ADA.
No, and I apologize if I wasn't clear. It's not a percentage. The 66.16. That's an actual increase. It's not a percentage. It's an actual number that we now know that we had and we're getting funded for that we did not know in June when we adopted the budget. So it's not a percentage. This particular program, we don't know until the school year ends, which and our annual ADA is filed, which isn't filed until July. And so when we adopted the budget, we didn't know what the county community school program average daily attendance was. And so now we can reflect that in our budget because we now know it. And we were 66 short of our projection back in June because we didn't know what the numbers were.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Trustee Maestas?
Thank you. Yeah, forgive this new guy here for this question. What is can you just explain to me what the difference between the ADA percentage and the unduplicated percent of enrollment is? Because I see in the high school LCFF calculation, the unduplicated percent of enrollment is 67.93%. What is that percentage refer to?
It's based on the socio-demographic of our families, of our students. And so if it's typically a higher poverty area, you would have a higher socio-economic percentage of student population than the other district. Because of where our students come from in the high school district, it's less poverty in many of those areas, and so we have a less percentage of our students that qualify as socioeconomic disadvantaged, and which is why it's a smaller percentage in the high school district than it is in the elementary district.
Yeah, it's nearly 20% difference. That's an interesting.
It could be it could be a result of not as much participation or filling out the forms. We do have this year. There's an emphasis on getting the forms filled out. Maybe at the high school level, it's different than it is at the elementary level. But I see Dr. Noguchi has a comment.
I think I'm visualizing the maps in my brain, and I think I know kind of why that is. So
yeah,
it might include Sylvan.
You have to consider that we have 7 districts that feed into the high school district. So it seems like it would just be a one-to-one, like let's say the EL growth. There is growth in the high school compared to the elementary. It's different. You can't compare that. And the same thing with dollars. So it takes a little bit to wrap your brain around. It took me about 6 months, and now I understand it. But it's just a little different because we really are 2 different districts, and high school district is fed by other districts.
That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Do we have any further questions or comments from the board? And if not, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the first interim financial report for 2020-2021 and positive financial certification. Trustee Brown moves and seconded by Trustee Marks. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we are going on to B5, and this is a report on Senate Bill 328, which is the later start time for 7th through 12th grades. And then we are also going to look at selecting a board representative to that task force. So I believe, Mr. Zierli, this is you again.
Yes, thank you again, President West. I'm pleased to present or turn this over to Ryan Hahn, who we've been working with Ryan for almost a year now. It began as an operational review of our transportation department, helping us with our new routing software for transportation services, and then it became an administrative support for our transportation department as well. And all this was in anticipation of Senate Bill 328, which, as President West noted, is the later start time for our 7th through 12th grade schools. And so we are going to give a presentation on what our plan is in facilitating a task force for implementation of SB 328 and the timelines that are attached to that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan for a quick presentation regarding SB 328.
All right. Am I sharing the correct slides?
Yes.
Good evening, President West, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Noguchi, Cabinet, and guests. My name is Ryan Hahn, and I'm with Strategic School Consultants, and I primarily work with public and private school districts along the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, on large change management initiatives such as the Later School Start Time Initiative, and in California, that is coined Senate Bill 328. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I do have to say that I also have the pleasure of working with the fantastic staff at Transportation who've been working very hard during these past several months, helping in many different areas. So it's a pleasure to be here. The purpose of this brief presentation on Senate Bill 328, we're going to define that for you, talk about the district goal alignment, the advisory capacity role in which the task force and steering committee works to provide kind of field considerations, stakeholder engagement and involvement, and come up with a recommendation to the board according to the timeline that we've adopted to implement Senate Bill 328 appropriately by 2022 at the latest. So what is Senate Bill 328? In California, the school day for high school students, including high schools operated as charter schools, will begin no earlier than 8:30 a.m. For middle schools, no earlier than 8 a.m. And to clarify that further, that doesn't mean that you can't have zero period or other programs that run prior to that time. However, for calculating average daily attendance, they do not allow your first period classes to start before those times. And like I just mentioned, the provision is that it must be implemented by July 1, 2022 at the latest. The science behind Senate Bill 328 has to do with, there's a lot of science behind it actually, and as I present in different districts on this, there's always questions around why did this happen, and the real short answer to that is there is quite a bit of research and analysis that has been completed to prove that secondary age students, junior high and high school students, they benefit from having a later school start time and added sleep in the morning. And that is the big push behind the Later School Start initiative across the country. This aligns Senate Bill 328 and the implementation of the moving pieces behind it. It does align with district goals, increase academic achievement, and ensure equitable access that enables all students to attain college and career readiness. And also, goal 3, provide a safe, welcoming, and respectful learning environment for every member of the school community while ensuring effective district-wide communication for students, staff, families, and community partners. So in order to work through this process, this is, and we're going to get into it just for a minute here, we needed an advisory task force to really help. This is comprised of several administrators. There will be a board member on it. There are school site principals. There are cabinet level officials. There are senior directors on the operations side as well that will all be working together to solicit feedback from stakeholders and to work through the different scenarios of actually moving our bell times to be compliant. Moving bell times is not necessarily the nicest topic to bring up all the time, and it impacts people in many different ways. And so we wanted to have a broad group of people help assess and review the implications and the needs, priorities of all the stakeholders. We needed to have a group that can assist in soliciting feedback from parents, students in the community, and staff to better provide data for decision makers in implementing the changes. And our role will be to prepare a formalized documentation source which further aligns this implementation with the district goals. And I have really been honing in on looking at this as an opportunity to align some of our transportation services and other related operational services with the district's equity initiative, and we can talk a little bit more about that. This is just a brief overview of who your task force members are. Just quickly, you have about 7 principals. Communications, you do have representation from Modesto Teachers Association and also CSEA on the classified side. We will want a board member representative, and as well as we have English learners, we have student support services and educational options as well. And we will have Becky Fortuna from Communications, who will be working with me tomorrow, actually, to talk about a communication plan out to the public. So a steering committee was also designed on the back end of this that involves the Senior Director of Maintenance and Operations, and the Senior Director of Nutrition Services to really hone in and work on all of the nuts and bolts that make operations work effectively to serve the educational needs of the district. When you look at moving bell times, part of my work behind the scenes is to help the district understand what the constraints are while utilizing the district's 60 bus fleet to move students to and from buildings, and that big puzzle that comes with that. But that's not the only puzzle. We have to talk about how that affects lunch times, how that affects staffing levels, how that affects janitorial services. There's a lot of different moving pieces, and we do have Brad and Mark on here to help on both the task force side and also the steering committee. The task force and the steering committee work in tandem, but they meet separately so that if there is any data-driven decision making that people need actual data for to bring back to the task force, we can go through this process together and then report back out. Our task force timeline officially started October 2020. You'll see a series of meetings. We've chosen to use a virtual town hall format, and we are going to be communicating out that those are going to be starting in January. They will be virtual due to COVID-19, and on the tail end of each of those, and you'll see that there's an area that we will be advertising for, and much like how people can solicit comments for board meetings, we set up a Senate Bill 328 Modesto City Schools email account where parents will have access to be able to get the task force and the steering committee their thoughts and feelings on information that's being presented and how this affects them, so that the district can move forward by the end of March in kind of wrapping the task force piece of this up and then preparing a final report to Mr. Zierle, who will then be working with me on the back side of things to come up with an actual bell time model or models that we can work together to present to the board sometime in May of this next May 2021. And this is tentative. We know that COVID plays a role in how we will be able to move along with this, but this is the timeline that we are moving forward with and advertising with at this time. And our final communications for school bell times would then come after the board adopts a bell time model and the nuts and bolts that go along with that. So just really quickly, our task force considerations are heavily looking through an equity lens. Transportation and the school bus is an access point for students, and looking at areas that may not have had the best access via school bus to school to help the students that need it the most. This is an opportunity for Modesto City Schools to really hone in on that and to be creative and reutilize assets to kind of bridge those gaps for students. We're looking at school start and end times, childcare impact on families, the logistics to provide education and operational services, And of course, we're soliciting feedback to all of our stakeholder groups. Our next steps, we do need a board representative appointment, as the board president shared. Our January meetings will be kicking off shortly. Evening committee and work meetings, all of those will be held virtually at this time, but we will have task force meetings with the public, and then we'll move right into a working meeting to capture the thoughts that come in and to keep the documentation rolling while it's fresh in our minds, so we capture the true spirit of the comments and the needs. And then we will be working through our communication planning, which will be going out shortly. Having said all that, are there any questions?
Thank you. I am looking to see if any of our board members, Trustee Marks.
Yes, I have a question on the task force. I noticed that we didn't have any community members from, let's say, the school site councils involved in it, and I know we made a really good effort on how to elicit information from the community by doing the town halls and setting up that email. That was great. I'm just asking about, I just didn't know why we don't have school site councils on there, or some of the parents that this will be impacting pretty significantly, and just having them on the task force to be able to talk about it. So that was my question.
Absolutely. And Tim, would you like to say something first, or?
Yeah, we discussed that with the principals, and they are they're going to be communicating with their parent organizations or their school site councils. As you can see, the task force is getting rather large, and with the schools on there, it could get to a level that virtually is kind of hard to have efficient working relationship. So that's why we talked about the virtual town halls and getting input from the site representatives at the town halls, but it may come back in January where the principals bring us names of people they want to include on here, and we may be adding to that depending on what the principals bring back to us. And Brian, anything else?
No, that sums it up perfectly. Thank you.
Did you have another question, or was that good, Trustee Marks?
That's okay. I actually was going to ask Ryan a question. So since you have this unique job of doing this in all these school districts around our state and other states, just wondering if the model is mainly school district personnel and not non-personnel. So the community is not involved in these task forces.
Well, it depends on the individual district, and this particular formation is going to start with what it is and then grow as it goes through the different geographic areas. So we purposely chose different geographic areas to target during certain meetings, and then we have working meetings, and then there's another follow-up set of working meetings towards the end, where if we need to reach back out to people or we need to have further conversation, the difference between the state of California and other states that I work in is this is a mandate.
Right.
So it really changes the tone of, hey, you guys, we have to do this. We don't have a choice, but it doesn't mean that we don't involve people, but we allow the conversation to evolve, but we start sharing the constraints around, what are the tough things that students face, that parents face, and I can say that this process will start small and grow, and we'll be visiting quite a bit as a task force, I imagine.
Okay.
Could I interject?
Pardon? I just wanted to thank you, Ryan, too, for sharing that. And I have to say, I'm extremely frustrated with this bill because I lobbied my legislators very hard with CSBA to block this and to keep it from going forward. But I can't remember the guy who did it. He was holding everybody's hands behind their back and making them do it. So anyway, what it is, I'm not happy with, but I wanted to be able to choose this if we thought that it was best for our students, and we didn't get the choice. So, but I thank you for helping us get this process going and making it work the way that we need it to. So thank you.
Yeah, when we first started this process with Mr. Zierli, we really look at this as an opportunity, and the opportunity is to look at things through an equity lens, and so it's going to be an exciting process for us.
Thank you. We're going to go on. I think Trustee Mejia had his hand up next.
You know, I actually wanted to be part of the task force, to consider that as a board member. I would like to be on it, and so that's my comment. I think there's a lot of work, but I'm also excited the opportunity to engage stakeholder groups and community. I think it'll be exciting, but I'm glad that we're looking at all the sites, especially I'm hoping that we're looking at all the places where the most busing takes place, where like the most people, like the most communities are impacted the most. I think that was important. So I was happy to see some of the schools where I know that lots of kids get bused from or from those neighborhoods. So
thank you thank you for volunteering for that. We'll be taking a vote soon. Thank you for your offer. I believe Trustee Brown was next, and then Vice President Lopez.
Yes, looking at the timeline, it appears that we are shooting for a decision by the end of this school year, but the state deadline is not until the end of the next year. So when do we propose to implement the change?
That'll be part of the recommendation that we bring to the board in May. Would be an implementation either July 21 or July 22 that corresponds with the intent of the language. So that'll be a work from the task force group to bring a recommendation to the board based on the input we receive from our partners, and so but we wanted to get it done in May. Even if it's July of 22, that gives us time to prepare for that and to in order to engage our community and our staff in the process.
I appreciate that we're not waiting and stuck with the inability to implement by waiting too long. So thank you for that process.
Trustee Lopez? Vice President Lopez, sorry.
No problem. So I wanted to say a couple things. I do agree that we need parent input. It's and I know that we have our community forums, and that's great. To get a really broad feedback, but I think that in groups in working groups, we still need that voice in there as well. You know, making those final recommendations to us, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that's gonna be impacted the most along with their children, right? So whether it's big, whether we need to make it bigger, that's all right, but we need to have that input, I believe, in there. And with that, I want to be a part of that committee as well, but I'll want to make the motion that we accept, that we appoint Trustee Mejia to be a part of that workforce.
Okay. Second that when we're ready.
Okay, we're not quite ready, but thank you. We're going to get to that. So Lopez, I'm going to write that down, and Marks. I just wanted to chime in on, I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. I think this is going to significantly impact a lot of our families. And I'm not opposed to starting the work right now, but I just feel like people have so many changes that have gone on in their lives in this last year, and people are struggling just to survive. And now we're throwing in, let's talk about, changing everything again. And I just feel like we're rocking everyone's world, and we're trying to get some stability right now. And I'm just worried that we're throwing too many changes at people when we're trying to just get back to school. And so, I think maybe it's smart not to wait until the last minute, but right now it feels like it's going so fast, especially since we really don't have to make the changes until the following year. So I just want to kind of plant the seed that if it's too many changes, that we might want to wait until the following year to actually implement this. Just a thought, because I just worry about people's worlds changing in so many ways. If we can provide some stability for a little while, I'd like to be able to do that. Okay, so we are going to talk about our representative now. And, I didn't go to Ms. Noonan. Did we have any comments or questions from the public?
No, we did not on this item.
All right, thank you. And so we have already a volunteer, and we have moved by Vice President Lopez, seconded by Trustee Marks, that Trustee Mejia would like to be our representative. So all those in favor of that, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Trustee Mejia, congratulations. You will be the new representative. And this motion carries unanimously. So we're moving on to B6. And this is where we need to recess our regular school board meeting as Modesto City Schools and move into the Joint Powers Authority. And so we are going to now recess the Modesto City Schools board meeting, and we are going to open the Joint Power Authority. Our first action is to approve the minutes from the meeting of last year, which was January 21st, 2020. So do I hear a motion to approve those minutes from the meetings from last year?
I'll second it. I see Trustee Lopez's hand.
Trustee Lopez and Trustee Marks seconds. And all in favor, say aye of approving the minutes.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. So we're going to move now to the next part, where we're going to complete the election of Modesto City Schools Joint Powers Authority 2021 officers. And I would like to request a motion to approve the officers as they are slated in the agenda. Do I hear a motion? That would be Trustee Brown, and seconded by
Trustee Mejia.
Trustee Mejia. And all in favor of approving the officers as slated in the agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. And the third portion of this now is the need to have a motion to approve the authorization of the annual audit of the accounts and records of the authority for the fiscal year, which ended June 30th, 2020, and direction to staff to transmit the report accordingly. So before we move to that, do we have any comments, Ms. Noonan, from the public?
No, we do not.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the authorization for the annual audit and direction to staff to transmit the report accordingly. Do I hear a motion? That's moved by Trustee Miestas and seconded by Trustee...
I'll second it.
Marks.
Thank you, Marks. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And now we're going to adjourn the Joint Powers of Authority meeting. And we are going to reconvene as Modesto City Schools Board of Education. And so items placed on future Board of Education agenda. I believe we have one from tonight's meeting, which is the nomination for one of our committees. So that will be for next meeting. Do we have any other items to be placed on future board agendas? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move adjournment.
Trustee Marks and seconded by Trustee Brown. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Have a great
Awesome.
evening.
Good job.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night, guys.
Nice job,
Good night.
Charlene.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.